Listen to me, everyone. Today, I want to remind you of a truth so powerful that it can transform the way you live every single day. You are covered by grace, and God is protecting you from battles you cannot even see. Life is often full of unseen struggles. Sometimes we face difficulties we can name, financial challenges, health issues, or relationship problems. But there are also hidden battles, spiritual and emotional conflicts that we don't even know exist. These are the battles that could shake us to our core if we were aware of them. And here's the beautiful part. God is already fighting those battles on your behalf. God's grace is not just a concept. It is a living, active force that envelops every believer, offering protection even from dangers and struggles we cannot perceive. Often we think of protection in visible terms, being safe from accidents, illness, or conflicts we can see. But the reality is that much of the spiritual and emotional battles in our lives are hidden, occurring in dimensions beyond our sight. These are the struggles that could derail us if we were fully aware of them. It is in these unseen moments that God's grace demonstrates its true power. When we speak of being covered by grace, we are talking about a divine shield, a supernatural cloak that wraps around our lives, keeping us safe even before we understand what we are facing. Just as a parent shields a child from danger they cannot yet comprehend, God intervenes in ways that often go unnoticed, preventing attacks, guiding steps, and closing doors that could have led to harm. The Bible reminds us repeatedly that God's protection is both real and comprehensive. In Psalm 91:4, it says, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart." This imagery of a bird sheltering its young perfectly captures the essence of God's grace. There are moments in life when we may feel exposed, vulnerable, or uncertain. We may even witness others facing crises that seem similar to ours and wonder why we are spared. It is not by chance that we are untouched in certain situations. It is God's grace at work, acting on our behalf in the spiritual realm. Hidden battles are real, and grace is the divine mechanism that keeps us protected from the full impact of those battles, even if we never fully comprehend the extent of the threats around us. One of the most profound aspects of grace is its proactive nature. While human efforts often involve reacting to challenges after they occur, God's grace works ahead of time. It intervenes in ways that prevent problems before they reach us. There may be moments in your life where you experience unexpected peace in situations that could have caused panic, doors closing in relationships that could have brought harm, or opportunities being delayed for your own protection. These are all manifestations of grace in action. God's invisible hand shielding you from consequences, dangers, and attacks that you cannot see. Often we mistake these moments as coincidences or luck, but in reality, they are divine interventions born out of God's love and faithfulness. Being covered by grace also allows us to walk in freedom and confidence. When we understand that God is actively protecting us, fear loses its grip. We no longer have to carry the weight of worry or stress about potential threats, because grace assures us that there is a divine safeguard in place. Spiritual and emotional battles may still exist around us, but they cannot reach the essence of our lives because God's grace is a shield that intervenes in both obvious and hidden ways. This understanding transforms the way we live, giving us the courage to step forward, pursue God's purpose, and trust Him fully, knowing that we are enveloped by His love and protection. Ultimately, being covered by grace is a call to faith. It is a reminder that God's protection is not limited to what we can see or comprehend. Even when the world seems chaotic and unseen forces seem to surround us, we are safe under His care. Grace is God's active, loving, and supernatural presence in our lives, ensuring that hidden battles do not define our destiny. It is both a shield and a sanctuary, a divine embrace that assures us that no matter what unseen struggles may exist, we are under the protection of a faithful, omnipotent God. Faith is not just belief, it is the key that activates God's divine protection in our lives. While God's grace covers us and shields us from unseen battles, faith is what allows us to tap into that protection consciously and experience it fully. Without faith, even the most powerful divine safeguards can go unnoticed, and we may struggle under fear, doubt, and anxiety. Faith bridges the gap between the unseen reality of God's grace and the visible experience of peace, confidence, and victory in our daily lives. It is through faith that we align ourselves with God's promises, activating the shield of His protection and allowing Him to work on our behalf in ways that surpass human understanding. Faith operates as a spiritual lens, helping us perceive God's hand at work, even when circumstances seem uncertain. Many times life presents situations that appear overwhelming or threatening. It is natural to feel vulnerable when challenges arise, whether they be financial difficulties, health issues, relational conflicts, or spiritual attacks. However, faith enables us to trust that God is already in control, that His grace is active, and that unseen battles are being fought for us. Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that even when we cannot see the full picture of what God is doing, faith allows us to rest in the assurance that He is protecting us and orchestrating outcomes for our good. Moreover, faith is not passive. It is an active response that invites God's intervention. When we pray, read His Word, and walk in obedience, we are exercising faith, acknowledging that God's promises are true, and declaring our trust in His protection. Faith turns grace from a potential into a reality. Without faith, we might fail to recognize the battles we are being spared or the dangers we are being shielded from. But with faith, every step we take becomes one under divine guidance and supernatural security. Faith acts as a spiritual compass, guiding us through life's uncertainties while keeping us enveloped in God's protective embrace. Faith also transforms the way we perceive challenges. When we trust in God's protection, we are no longer consumed by fear or anxiety over what we cannot see. Instead, we see obstacles as opportunities for God to demonstrate His power and faithfulness. Spiritual attacks, negative thoughts, or unforeseen problems lose their authority when met with unwavering faith, because faith acknowledges that God is greater than any force attempting to harm us. It is faith that allows us to stand firm in the midst of trials, knowing that God's grace is actively shielding us from what could have overwhelmed us if left unchecked. Another powerful aspect of faith is that it encourages persistence and hope. Even when results are delayed, when prayers seem unanswered, or when life seems uncertain, faith keeps us anchored in God's promises. It reminds us that His timing is perfect and that His protection is continuous. Hidden battles may still exist, but they cannot penetrate the life of one who walks in faith. Faith is the assurance that God is not only watching over us, but actively intervening for our good. It allows us to navigate life with confidence, knowing that grace and protection are not just abstract ideas, but living realities that we experience through trust. Ultimately, faith and grace work together harmoniously. Grace is God's provision of protection, and faith is the key that unlocks it. Faith transforms unseen spiritual protection into a lived reality, allowing us to experience peace, courage, and victory in every area of life. When we walk in faith, we step into a life where God's protection is no longer hidden or abstract, but tangible in our daily experiences. We learn to trust that His hand is always upon us, guiding us, shielding us, and ensuring that every hidden battle is already under His control. Hidden battles are a reality in every believer's life, though they are often invisible to the naked eye. These are the struggles that occur in the spiritual realm or within our hearts, minds, and emotions. Challenges that we cannot always see or understand, but which can impact our lives in profound ways. They may come in the form of spiritual attacks, temptations, doubts, or unseen circumstances designed to divert us from our purpose. Often, The human mind wants to focus only on what is visible and tangible, yet the Bible repeatedly emphasizes the existence of an unseen world where spiritual warfare is constant. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." This verse clearly indicates that many of our battles are invisible, yet their effects can be very real if left unchecked. The existence of hidden battles might be difficult to accept, especially when life seems to flow smoothly, or when we see others facing visible struggles that we ourselves do not experience. However, understanding that these battles exist helps us recognize the importance of God's protection and grace in our lives. Hidden battles are like currents under the water. We may appear calm on the surface, but beneath there is movement that could sweep us away if we were not anchored in faith. These battles are not a sign of weakness or failure. They are part of the spiritual reality in which we live. The good news is that God, in His infinite wisdom and love, does not leave us defenseless. His grace is the unseen shield that surrounds us, keeping us safe from attacks before they ever reach our awareness. Many times, hidden battles are prevented from even touching our lives through divine intervention. For example, you may have experienced moments when an opportunity you desired did not materialize. A relationship fell apart, or circumstances led you down an unexpected path. At the time, these events may have caused disappointment or confusion, but in hindsight, they often reveal God's protective hand. He is guarding us from dangers, decisions, or influences that could have harmed us physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Hidden battles are not always meant for us to fight. They are battles God fights on our behalf, demonstrating His faithfulness and love. Recognizing the reality of hidden battles also helps us cultivate humility and gratitude. We are reminded that our victories and protections are not solely the result of our own efforts, but of God's intervention. This awareness encourages us to rely not on our strength, but on His power. It allows us to approach life with confidence and peace, knowing that what we do not see does not mean God is not at work. He is actively working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, guiding our steps, and shielding us from harm. Furthermore, hidden battles teach us the importance of prayer and spiritual vigilance. While God's grace protects us, our engagement with Him through prayer, faith, and obedience allows us to align with His protection more fully. Prayer is not only a means to request help in visible struggles, but it also strengthens our spiritual defenses against the unseen. When we cultivate a close relationship with God, we become more attuned to His guidance, more aware of His protection, and better prepared to navigate the spiritual realities that surround us. Ultimately, the reality of hidden battles underscores the magnitude of God's grace and protection. Even when we are unaware, God is actively shielding us from harm, guiding us through life, and ensuring that unseen struggles do not dictate our destiny. Understanding hidden battles reminds us that our faith and reliance on God are not theoretical. They are essential for navigating a world where spiritual and emotional challenges exist beyond our perception. As we trust in His grace, we can live boldly, confidently, and peacefully, knowing that every hidden battle is already under His control. Grace is more than protection, it is transformative. One of the most profound ways God's grace manifests in our lives is by bringing peace, courage, and hope into situations that might otherwise overwhelm us. Life is filled with challenges, uncertainties, and trials. These can range from personal struggles, relational conflicts, financial difficulties, health concerns, or spiritual attacks. Often, the natural human response is fear, anxiety, or despair. Yet when we are covered by God's grace, we experience a supernatural strength that allows us to navigate these challenges with a calm and confident heart. This is not merely a feeling of comfort. It is a deep-seated assurance that God is with us, guiding, protecting, and sustaining us through every storm. Grace transforms our perspective, changing how we see problems and empowering us to rise above circumstances that might otherwise have defeated us. Peace is one of the first gifts of living under God's grace. True peace does not mean the absence of difficulty. It means the presence of God even in the midst of difficulty. Isaiah 26:3 reminds us, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." When we trust in God's protection and provision, our minds are no longer dominated by fear or worry. Grace allows us to remain steadfast, even when life appears chaotic. Hidden battles, spiritual attacks, or unforeseen obstacles cannot shake the believer who is anchored in God's peace. This peace is a reflection of the presence of God working actively in our lives, keeping us calm and focused, even in circumstances that might overwhelm those who rely solely on their own strength. Courage is another powerful fruit of God's grace. When we understand that we are covered by His divine protection, we can face life boldly. We can step into challenges, pursue opportunities, and confront difficulties with confidence, knowing that God is our shield and our guide. Courage born from grace is not reckless. It is grounded in faith and trust. It allows us to act even when we do not fully understand the path ahead, believing that God's unseen hand is directing every step. Romans 8:31 reminds us, if God is for us, who can be against us? Grace instills in us the courage to face opposition, rejection, or trials with a confident heart, secure in the knowledge that the ultimate outcome is in God's hands. Hope is another transformative aspect of grace. Life is unpredictable and setbacks are inevitable. Yet grace keeps our hearts anchored in hope, reminding us that God is working for our good, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Hope fueled by grace allows us to see beyond temporary struggles, envisioning a future filled with God's promises and blessings. It encourages perseverance, resilience, and unwavering faith. When hope is rooted in God's protection, we are not easily shaken by fear, doubt, or despair. We recognize that every challenge is temporary, and every battle, seen or unseen, is under the control of a loving God. Grace also transforms the way we respond to trials. Instead of being consumed by anxiety, resentment, or frustration, grace helps us maintain a heart of gratitude and trust. It allows us to recognize God's hand even in difficulties, teaching us patience, humility, and reliance on Him. Through grace, challenges become opportunities for growth, spiritual maturity, and deeper intimacy with God. Every trial faced under the umbrella of grace strengthens faith and reinforces the assurance that we are never alone, never unprotected, and never abandoned. Ultimately, grace is both a shield and a transformative power. It brings peace in chaos, courage in fear, and hope in despair. It allows us to live boldly, confidently, and faithfully, even in the face of hidden battles or visible trials. God's grace is not passive. It actively shapes our character, strengthens our faith, and equips us to walk through life's challenges with confidence. Those who are covered by grace do not merely survive difficult circumstances. They thrive spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, knowing that the same God who protects them also empowers them to overcome every obstacle. Walking boldly in confidence is one of the most powerful responses to understanding that God's grace covers us and protects us from unseen battles. Many people live in fear, hesitation, and uncertainty, because they are unaware of the spiritual protection and divine guidance surrounding them. Life is filled with situations that can intimidate or overwhelm us, whether it is pursuing our purpose, facing opposition, or stepping into new opportunities. Yet, when we fully grasp that God is our protector, we gain a supernatural confidence that allows us to act without being paralyzed by fear. This confidence is not rooted in our own abilities, but in the assurance that the Almighty, who is greater than any challenge or hidden battle, walks with us and goes before us in every situation. Confidence in the believer's life does not come from luck, circumstance, or human strength. It comes from knowing that we are under divine protection. Proverbs 3:25-26 says, "Do not be afraid of sudden terror or of trouble from the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught." This verse reminds us that the unseen forces that seek to harm, distract, or derail us do not have the final word. God's grace acts as a shield, preventing these hidden challenges from overwhelming us. When we internalize this truth, we can move forward in life with assurance, knowing that nothing can touch us without God's permission. Our steps are guided and our paths are directed by a power far greater than any obstacle we might face. Walking boldly also requires faith. Faith and confidence are inseparable because true confidence is the natural outcome of trusting in God's promises. It allows us to approach challenges with courage rather than fear, to pursue dreams that might seem impossible, and to engage with life without being paralyzed by doubt or worry. Faith transforms our perspective. We no longer see obstacles as threats, but as opportunities for God's power to be revealed. Hidden battles, though they exist, lose their ability to intimidate us because we know that God is actively defending us. With this mindset, fear is replaced by assurance, hesitation is replaced by courage, and uncertainty is replaced by trust in God's divine plan. Another key aspect of walking boldly in confidence is the freedom it brings to live fully in purpose. When we are assured of God's protection, we can step into our calling without being weighed down by what-ifs or imagined dangers. The Apostle Paul encourages believers to be strong and courageous, not in their own might, but in the strength that comes from God. This is the confidence that comes from knowing that hidden battles have already been addressed by divine intervention. We can face opposition, criticism, or trials without being shaken, because our security is not dependent on circumstances, but on God's faithfulness. Confidence under God's protection also inspires those around us. When others see a believer who walks fearlessly, trusting fully in God's grace, it serves as a powerful testimony of faith. Boldness encourages others to place their trust in God as well, creating a ripple effect of courage and hope. By walking confidently, we are not only claiming our own victory over fear and hidden battles, but also demonstrating the reality of God's grace to the world. Ultimately, walking boldly in confidence is a choice to trust God, embrace His protection, and step forward despite uncertainty. It is a reflection of understanding that life's hidden battles cannot dictate our destiny because God's grace is actively covering us. Confidence, born from faith and grace, empowers us to live courageously, pursue our purpose with determination, and face life's challenges with unwavering assurance. Those who walk in this confidence are not reckless or careless. They are guided, protected, and empowered by the hand of God. They move forward with a peace that surpasses understanding, knowing that no hidden battle can overcome the one who is fully covered by God's grace. Recognizing and declaring that we are covered by God's grace is one of the most powerful acts of faith a believer can do. It is not enough to understand that God protects us from hidden battles and unseen struggles. We must actively affirm it in our hearts, minds, and words. Declaration is an expression of trust and faith, a way of aligning ourselves with the reality of God's promises and activating His power in our lives. When we declare that we are covered, we are not merely speaking words. We are entering into a spiritual posture that acknowledges God's sovereignty, His love, and His supernatural protection. This practice strengthens our faith, reinforces our spiritual defenses, and brings clarity and courage to our daily life. Declarations are powerful because they shape our perception and influence our spiritual reality. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." When we speak affirmations of God's protection and grace, we are choosing to focus on truth rather than fear. Hidden battles and unseen challenges are a reality, but they cannot hold power over the one who declares faith and trust in God. By verbally acknowledging that we are shielded and guided, we are reminding ourselves that our life is under divine supervision, that no attack, seen or unseen, can overpower God's protection. This habit of declaration helps to cultivate a mindset that is resilient, hopeful, and rooted in the certainty of God's care. The act of declaring God's protection also has a profound effect on our spiritual armor. Ephesians 6 speaks of putting on the full armor of God, truth, righteousness, faith, salvation, and the word of God. When we declare that we are covered by grace, we are actively engaging this armor. Our faith becomes strengthened, our spiritual vision is clarified, and our awareness of God's presence is heightened. These declarations act as reminders that every hidden battle is already under divine control and that our lives are being directed by a power greater than any force that seeks to harm us. Speaking God's promises aloud strengthens our alignment with His will and deepens our confidence in His protection. Moreover, declarations reinforce our inner peace and emotional stability. Life is unpredictable, and challenges can arise suddenly. When we consciously remind ourselves through verbal affirmation that God is covering us, it helps calm our fears, soothe our anxieties, and stabilize our emotions. Grace is not only God's provision of protection, it is also the source of supernatural peace, courage, and hope. By declaring this truth, we are actively embracing that peace, choosing to trust God rather than succumb to worry or despair. It creates a spiritual mindset that perceives life through the lens of divine protection, rather than through the limitations of human understanding or perception. Declarations also impact our external actions. When we speak God's promises, our confidence increases, our boldness grows, and our willingness to step into purpose expands. Hidden battles may exist, but they no longer paralyze us. By declaring God's protection, we move forward in life with assurance, take courageous steps in our personal and professional lives, and engage relationships with love and wisdom. Our declarations become a spiritual engine that drives us toward destiny, not allowing fear or uncertainty to dictate our steps. Ultimately, declaration is both a spiritual discipline and a proclamation of faith. It strengthens our belief in God's grace, reinforces our awareness of His protection, and allows us to live confidently in the face of unseen battles. When we declare, I am covered by God's grace, I am protected from all hidden attacks, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, we are claiming a spiritual reality that exists regardless of visible circumstances. These words anchor us in truth, build our faith, and ensure that our hearts, minds, and spirits remain secure in God's care. A life of declaration is a life of empowerment, courage, and divine alignment, a life fully conscious of the incredible grace and protection of God that surrounds us every moment. In conclusion, understanding that we are covered by God's grace changes everything. It transforms fear into faith, uncertainty into confidence, and despair into hope. We may not see every battle around us, and many struggles are hidden from our eyes, but God's protection is real, constant, and powerful. His grace shields us, guides us, and empowers us to live boldly, courageously, and faithfully. When we walk in faith, declare His promises, and embrace His presence, no hidden battle can harm us, and no obstacle can derail our destiny. Remember, you are not alone. You are not defenseless. Every moment, every step, every challenge is under the watchful care of a loving God who fights for you, shields you, and surrounds you with His supernatural protection. Let this truth settle deep in your heart. You are covered by grace, and God is protecting you from all hidden battles. Walk forward boldly, live fearlessly and trust fully, because His grace is sufficient, His love is unending, and His protection is unfailing.